Hey everyone, this is Pause or Repeat. Here we figure out whether a game is really worth your time and money. Today's game is Fear the Spotlight. This game is part of Blumhouse Games' initiative to break into the gaming industry. As they are publishing the game, you can imagine that it is in fact a horror game. Perfect timing for the spooky season. But let's take a look at the game, starting with the gameplay, and find out how it turned out. The gameplay of Fear the Spotlight falls in the genre of survival horror while delivering it in a PS1 style aesthetic. The retro style the game embraces adds to the unnerving atmosphere that the game builds throughout, tapping into the nostalgia at the same time. Most of the game, you will be tasked with finding items to open up new ways to get more items, or open up a pathway forward. Many of the puzzles will involve you directly interacting with the environment, and when you do, the game will shift to a first-person perspective. In this perspective, you are given a cursor to move around and interact with the objects, usually to do something like unscrew bolts or press buttons on a vending machine, for example. While you are exploring, you will also be making sure to avoid getting caught by the monster chasing you, a humanoid figure with a spotlight for a head. When you are seen by said monster, you will take damage and have to heal up using inhalers, an item that can be found. Between the monster and the spectral beings you encounter in such a creepy atmosphere, be ready to have a heart-pounding experience. Now, how about the story? How does this all come together? The story follows Vivian and her friend Amy. They sneak into their school at night in order to conduct a seance. However, Amy being inexperienced with the supernatural, things take a turn for the worse, and both of you are transported into the past, 1991 to be exact. It is in this year that there was a devastating fire at the school, which explains why the spotlight monster brings fire in its wake. Now Vivian must find Amy and a way to return to her time before succumbing to the horrors of the past. But now the question still stands. Pause or repeat? Did we take a time machine back to 1995? Because, I've seen so many games do this whole PlayStation 1 aesthetic, and hey, you know what? I will say this one did a very good job with it, but I know you, Chris, are someone that can be a little off-put by low-quality graphics, so what did you think of this whole experience?
Yeah, Henrik, when Blumhouse Studios announced they were jumping into the video game world with the new division in 2024, I half expected, ghost hunting, a virtual purge, or maybe prank calling from the black phone. But after playing Fear the Spotlight, it's safe to say, let's keep that spotlight off for a while because it just might reveal some rough edges. I mean, this is a classic lesson. Just because you're a horror powerhouse on the big screen doesn't mean you'll knock it out of the park with gaming. I mean, it's kind of like, what's that? Oh, yeah. Borderlands, the movie, showed us. Because not all games are ready for Hollywood close-ups.
That's a low blow right there.
I'm just saying, sometimes they're better off staying pixels.
So you wouldn't want to see like a movie adaptation of this game made by Blumhouse?
Well, with their very first installment, absolutely not. I was actually very disappointed. If you're looking for a cozy Halloween game, then maybe Fear the Spotlight is for you, right?
You think this is cozy?
Absolutely cozy. There was like no fear factor involved. I mean, it just was like fewer polygons and scares. If you know what I'm saying. You nailed it out of the park. It really does give you that kind of PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64 vibes. I know that Blumhouse Studios, we've covered it in the past, literally last year, where they were going to be like, hey, we know that we're like a AAA in the cinematic world when it comes to horror movies in the modern era, but like we're going to go for this indie approach. I just feel like that's such a cop-out for just releasing shitty games now. I mean, I was really, really expecting way like something on the horror end, especially when you got someone that is running around with no head but a spotlight, kind of giving me the reminiscence of Pyramid Head. You would think that it would be a little bit more of a fear factor going involved. I just really didn't kind of get that kind of sense. And I'm actually kind of shocked that you're questioning me about this game, because aren't you the one that gets sick and tired of having to read about lore and like how none of this correlated with any of the two main characters, Vivian and Amy? I just didn't see how they connected to that high school other than just breaking in, sneaking into the library, playing on a Ouija board, and then things all go to hell.
Well, I am the horror fan between you and I. I'd say I'm
That's true.
The bigger horror fan. And I'll say, not most games don't really scare me. This one definitely did not scare me either. It didn't have that same kind of like anxiety when you're playing the game that I'm looking for in a horror game where, I wasn't feeling a threat from this spotlight monster really. I
No,
like the idea of it, but
I
it's
did
just
too.
like the execution of it just wasn't entirely there to make it really scary, you know?
Yeah, I
It
mean, I
kinda
get
just
it.
felt like it was a little goofy almost, and, in some respect,
Yeah,
the low quality graphics can help that
yeah,
because,
true.
it helps that, like, analog almost analog horror type of feel come into play, but at the same time, when you're looking at some of these shots of the monster and you just see that it looks kinda goofy, it just doesn't kinda help,
Yeah.
the whole anxiety that you're
Well,
expecting to feel from being chased by it.
you just can't call this game a survival horror. If anything, it's survival because there's nothing scary about turning knobs or pulling levers or like reconnecting
Yeah.
VHS cassettes so I can actually watch
And,
something on the
granted, a lot
projector.
of games in the genre, that is essentially what the gameplay is like you're just hiding from monsters and doing puzzles.
Shall I
But
do it again though? Shall I
it's
do it again? Because I know a lot of people were attacking me and for our last week's take on when it came to the Silent Hill remake, and everybody's like, I can't believe you compared it with a little bit of Resident Evil 4 remake, and then people took
I
the
mean,
little
were
short
we
reel out
really
of
wrong though? I
context.
mean, that game
No,
and
we
this game too,
absolutely
they're
not.
kind of like same kind of genre, and the genre just
Yeah.
has certain tropes to it that they fall into. And I'd
But
say
doesn't this
some do
feel
it
like
better
a
than
knockoff?
others.
They try to go for the Silent Hill old school like graphics with Resident Evil puzzles, okay? Yeah, there. I went there, okay? But like the connection between Vivian and Amy is solid. I thought that was really good, but the backstory, like the haunting of the school feels like it just wandered from another game. Like I
Yeah.
just kind of kept asking
And
myself,
that's the
Henry,
thing too. It's like a lot of the Blumhouse horror films are also campy like this one, but I feel like you lose a little bit of that magic that you can deliver in a horror film
yeah.
in a game format like this, where there
And
isn't
it's
really any fight.
incredibly short.
That
Incredibly
it's not a very
short.
long game, so
No, not at all. I mean, you could beat this thing in like under 2 hours. Like it's
yeah.
the length of a horror movie, which that to me I felt like was very problematic. And they're really banking on replayability because they have new puzzles and secrets the second time around. But I just didn't feel scared enough by the spotlight to dive back in. And how about that ending? I mean, to not try to spoil anything, it's about as original as a campfire ghost story. I
No,
mean, it
yeah,
was
it's
super
a cliche
cliche. Yeah, I mean, it
ending
was
for sure, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Cliches can be fun, but if you're expecting something to be unique
that's
and
true.
different from this, especially when this is something that Bluemess is trying to say, hey, this is our way to break into the gaming industry, you kind of got to deliver a unique experience to gamers nowadays. And this is not really something that's very unique,
Yeah, like I
unfortunately.
mean, I would have completely retitled this game instead of calling it Fear the Spotlight. Might be better named as Mildly Confused by the Spotlight. I mean, I understand that he is the real star. He looks like this zombified human with like a little spotlight on top of his head. He's burning the floor as he's trying to hunt you down. I mean, I understand that. You also got these like weird looking humanoid looking dudes that have like these glowing white eyes that are kind of like lurking in the background, trying to create that like ambiance as you start to approach like dark areas in the game, which is really cool. I mean, it was really geared towards those 90 kids, right? Like just like how you
Mhm.
nailed it. I just don't see how it would invite everyone. Maybe this is a game for like newcomers that are like don't want to get right into Alien Isolation because yes, that's a pretty scary freaking game and you want to kind of cozy your way in for the spooky season. Yeah, this game might be for you, but like I don't know. It's just like to me it's just like this really fell flat. I was very disappointed. I know that they have a larger lineup, to be released later on under Blumhouse Studios' new gaming's division. So I'm anticipating much more, but I was really excited for this game, and I don't know, no,
Well, I
it's a
mean, you would
pause.
expect that Blumhouse would do something big because they have such a big name in the horror franchise that they own. Like they did Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie which I know you didn't like.
And I don't
But they
even
also
want to
did,
see them touch.
like
Don't even let them touch it right now. I don't even want to see
yeah.
their adaptation of a video game for that game because the movie sucked. And I can't rely on them with even Fear the Spotlight that they would even make a different
So
adaptation
yeah,
of
we'll
Five
have to
Nights at
see what
Freddy to
else
be
they
any
come
better.
out with and see if it's any better. But
Gosh,
they didn't really start on the greatest of notes, we'll
not on the
say.
greatest note. And maybe that
Yeah.
was entirely on purpose. Maybe they felt the pressure to try to release something just in time for the Halloween season. Who
Yeah,
freaking knows?
maybe,
I mean,
maybe.
sometimes you get horror movies that drop during Christmas time. Maybe that would have been the right call. Sometimes we were making fun of Scream, right? When they dropped in March. Maybe that was the right call. If you're not ready, you're not ready. People still loved it and revered it once it came out a little bit late. Maybe they should have approached that a little bit better. I don't know. The story just didn't really stick with me. I think it's a flat pause. It's not even really worth trying it over again. But I mean, if it does show up on like a streaming service and you're like entirely bored, you feel like you played every single kind of horror game, jump in. You should. You should see like where Blumhouse Studios is going. But for that, it's a pause for me. What do you say, Henrik?
Yeah, I agree. It's a pause for me as well, and I do think it's the same sort of thing for me. Where if it shows up on some streaming service that you own already, or some bundle deal is out there that it makes it really worth it to grab it, then go ahead. Because it's not going to be the worst game out there, but definitely not
No.
a game that you're going to hop in and expect the world and
We've
then
played
want to
so
play it
many
all over again.
we've
So
played so many fantastic indie studio games that it just really highlights like there are some really crafted
yeah.
developers and publishers out there that really highly deserve the respect. And trust me, I mean the people, I know they're going to do a lot better. They
Mhm.
need to do a lot better. Or this kind
Well,
of
they have the
venture.
money to do so, so you'd expect that they would.
True, but I just don't with how fast and layoffs go within the industry, if this keeps going, I don't see this gaming division going any much further. Yeah, that's a bold take, but I said it all right. But hey,
Oh, well.
what are you going with? What's your verdict, Henrik?
Yeah, it's a pause.
It's a pause. So you heard it both from us.